Some machines don't just work, they outlast entire family bloodlines. There are tractors sitting on farms right now that were running before your grandfather was born, and they'll still be running long after you're gone. These aren't museum pieces, they're pulling plows, baling hay, and moving equipment on working farms today. That's not nostalgia, that's engineering so perfect, time refused to kill it. These 10 tractors didn't just survive decades of brutal use, they defined what it means to work. And if you think modern technology has replaced them, you're about to be proven very wrong. Number 1. John Deere Model D. Let's start with the machine that essentially set the standard for every farm tractor that followed it. The John Deere Model D was produced from 1923 all the way to 1953, a 30-year production run that no other tractor in history has matched. To put that in perspective, a Model D purchased in the year it launched could have been used by a father, then his son, and then his grandson, covering 3 full working generations without a single replacement. The Model D was powered by a 2-cylinder horizontal engine displacing 501 cubic inches. It produced around 30 horsepower at the drawbar, which was extraordinary for its era. Farmers nicknamed John Deere's 2-cylinder engines Poppin' Johnnies because of their distinctive sound, a slow, rhythmic pop-pop-pop that you could hear from half a mile away across an open field. What made the Model D legendary wasn't just its power, it was its simplicity. The engine had only 2 cylinders, which meant fewer parts to fail, easier diagnosis when something went wrong, and repairs that a farmer could do himself with basic tools in a barn. The fuel system was designed to run on low-grade fuel, kerosene or distillate, which was cheaper than gasoline and widely available in rural areas. Farmers didn't need to be mechanics, they just needed to be farmers. Over its production life, John Deere sold more than 160,000 Model D tractors. Many of those machines are still operational today, and they still show up at farm auctions, vintage tractor shows, and yes, on working farms. The Model D didn't just work harder than 3 generations of farmers, it worked alongside 3 generations of farmers, and both parties earned their rest. Number 2. Farmall Regular. Before the Farmall Regular, most tractors were designed for one job, pulling heavy equipment in straight lines. They were essentially replacements for draft horses in terms of function. International Harvester changed that conversation permanently in 1924 when they released the Farmall Regular, the world's first true row crop tractor. The Farmall was designed with high ground clearance and a narrow front axle, which allowed it to straddle rows of corn, cotton, and other crops without destroying them. It also came equipped with a power takeoff PTO shaft, which meant it could power implements like mowers, threshers, and planters directly from the tractor's engine. That was a concept-shifting innovation. Suddenly, a single tractor wasn't just a pulling machine, it was a mobile power source that could run an entire farm's worth of equipment. The Farmall Regular used a 220 cubic inch 4-cylinder engine, producing around 20 horsepower. It weighed approximately 3,600 pounds. Those numbers sound modest today, but in the mid-1920s, this was the machine that allowed a single farmer to do the work that previously required multiple workers and multiple teams of horses. International Harvester sold over 134,000 Farmall Regulars during its production run. Farmers who bought one in 1924 and maintained it properly were still running it in the 1940s and 1950s. The design was so ahead of its time that it shaped row crop tractor design for the next 5 decades. Number 3. Ferguson TE20. If you've ever heard the phrase, "the little gray Fergie," this is the tractor that phrase was born from. The Ferguson TE20, often just called the Fergie, was introduced in 1946 and became one of the most important agricultural machines ever built, not because it was the most powerful, because it was the most brilliant. Harry Ferguson had developed a hydraulic 3-point hitch system in the 1930s and spent years trying to convince manufacturers to adopt it. The 3-point hitch allowed implements to be attached to the rear of the tractor and raised or lowered hydraulically. But Ferguson's version went one step further. It used a system he called draft control, which automatically adjusted the depth of an implement based on the resistance the soil was providing. If the plow hit heavy clay, the hitch would sense the increased load and raise the plow slightly to prevent the tractor from stalling. This was automatic, continuous, and revolutionary. The TE2 was powered by a Continental Z120 engine producing 28 horsepower. It weighed just 2,500 pounds, light enough that it didn't compact soil the way heavier machines did, preserving the structure farmers needed for good crops. Standard Ferguson produced over 500,000 TE20 tractors between 1946 and 1956, and they were exported around the world. In the United Kingdom, Ireland, and across Europe and Australia, T20 tractors transformed subsistence farming into productive commercial agriculture. Farms that had been barely viable suddenly became profitable. The tractor's hydraulic system was so well designed that it became the international standard. Today, every tractor made by every manufacturer uses a version of the three-point hitch that Harry Ferguson invented. The Fergie didn't just work hard, it changed the definition of what working hard meant. Number 4. John Deere 4020. If you asked any American farmer who was active in the 1960s and 1970s which tractor defined that era, the answer would almost certainly be the John Deere 4020. Released in 1963 as part of John Deere's new generation lineup, the 4020 was a machine that seemed to anticipate every need a working farm could have. The 4020 was available in multiple configurations: gasoline, diesel, or liquefied petroleum gas, allowing farmers to choose the fuel source that made the most economic sense for their operation. The diesel version produced approximately 91 horsepower at the PTO, which was enough to handle large multi-bottom plows, heavy discs, and combination planters in conditions that would have overwhelmed earlier machines. One of the 4020's most celebrated features was its 8-speed synchro range transmission, which allowed on-the-go shifting without stopping the tractor. Farmers could adjust their ground speed fluidly as field conditions changed, slowing through a wet low spot, speeding up on firm ground without interrupting work. The 4020 also introduced power steering as a standard feature, reducing operator fatigue dramatically during long days. John Deere produced over 200,000 Model 4020 tractors during its production run. Decades later, working 4020s remain some of the most sought-after used tractors on the market. They are not bought for nostalgia, they are bought because they work. Parts remain widely available, experienced mechanics know the machines inside and out, and the engines, when properly maintained, have logged well over 10,000 hours on single farms, the equivalent of working a full 8-hour day every single day for more than 3.5 years without stopping. Number 5. Allis-Chalmers WD-45. Allis-Chalmers doesn't get the same historical recognition as John Deere or International Harvester, but that's an injustice that agricultural history hasn't fully corrected. The WD-45, produced from 1953 to 1957, was one of the most technologically advanced tractors of its era and had one of the highest horsepower-to-weight ratios available to farmers at the time. The WD-45 was the first farm tractor to offer a factory-installed gasoline engine that produced over 40 horsepower, specifically 43.3 horsepower, in the all-fuel version tested by the Nebraska Tractor Test Laboratory, which was the official U.S. standard for tractor performance. When equipped with the diesel engine introduced in 1955, output climbed even further, giving farmers access to pulling power that had previously required machines twice the size. The WD-45 also featured traction booster Allis-Chalmers version of draft control, which transferred implement weight onto the rear drive wheels under heavy load conditions. This increased traction in soft conditions without requiring farmers to add ballast weights manually. Combined with a live PTO and live hydraulics which continued operating even when the clutch was depressed, the WD-45 gave operators more precise control over their implements than most competing machines. Allis-Chalmers produced approximately 83,000 WD-45 tractors. Farmers who ran them hard through the 1950s and 1960s found that with basic maintenance, the machines just didn't wear out on any reasonable timeline. Many WD-45s that were still working in the 1980s had been on the same farm for 30 years, maintained by the same family across generations. Number 6. International Harvester Farmall M. The Farmall M is one of the most recognizable tractors ever built, and for good reason. International Harvester introduced it in 1939 as the flagship of the Farmall letter series, and it immediately became the dominant row crop tractor in the United States. It held that position for over a decade. It used a 4-cylinder engine displacing 247.7 cubic inches and producing approximately 36 horsepower at the drawbar. It was available in standard tricycle row crop configuration, as well as wide front axle variants for different farming applications. The use high clearance made it ideal for cultivating tall-growing crops, and its PTO and hydraulic lift made it adaptable to virtually every major farm implement of the era. What separated the Farmall from competitors wasn't any single feature. It was the combination of power, versatility, parts availability, and the enormous dealer network International Harvester maintained. If a part broke anywhere in rural America in the 1940s, there was almost always an IH dealer within a reasonable distance who had it in stock. International Harvester produced over 500,000 Farmall M tractors. That number alone tells the story of how deeply this machine embedded itself into American agriculture. Farms in the Midwest, South, and Great Plains that ran on Farmall M power through the 1940s and 1950s often kept those machines running into the 1970s and beyond, simply because they had no reason to replace something that kept working. Number 7. Ford 8N. The Ford 8N is arguably the most influential small tractor ever built in North America. Released in 1947 following the dissolution of the famous Ford-Ferguson partnership, the 8N incorporated the Ferguson 3-point hitch system and draft control that had made the earlier Ford-Ferguson 9N and 2N so successful and then improved on them. The 8N used a 4-cylinder side valve engine producing approximately 27 horsepower. That number is unimpressive by modern standards, but the 8N weighed only about 2,500 pounds, giving it a power-to-weight ratio that made it extraordinarily capable relative to its size. It could pull a 2-bottom plow in most soil conditions, run a rear-mount mower, operate a post-hole digger, and handle most jobs a small to medium-sized farm required. Ford produced approximately 524,000 Ford 8N tractors between 1947 and 1952, making it one of the best-selling tractor models in American history. The simplicity of its design, the widespread availability of parts, and the enormous installed base meant that repair knowledge was everywhere. Farmers didn't need to consult specialists. They could fix most problems themselves or find a neighbor who could help. Ford 8N tractors are still being used on working farms today, not as curiosities, but as genuine work machines. Orchards use them, small vegetable farms use them, hobby farms and sustainable agriculture operations use them. The 8N has now been in use long enough that some of the grandchildren of the farmers who first bought them are running those exact same tractors on those exact same farms. Number 8. Oliver 88. Oliver was never as large as John Deere or International Harvester, but within the farming communities of the Midwest and Great Plains, Oliver tractors had an intensely loyal following, and the Oliver 88 was the reason why. The 88 was introduced in 1947 and represented a genuine leap forward in power and efficiency for mid-size row crop tractors. Its 6-cylinder engine, unusual at a time when most competitors were offering 4-cylinder designs, produced approximately 44 horsepower in the gasoline version, with diesel and LP gas variants also available. The 6-cylinder configuration ran more smoothly and with better fuel efficiency per unit of work than comparable 4-cylinder machines. The Oliver 88 featured one of the most comfortable operator positions available in any tractor of that era. Oliver had invested in ergonomic design at a time when most manufacturers hadn't given much thought to the human being sitting on the machine for 12 or 14 hours a day. The controls were logically placed, the seat was better cushioned than competitors, and the visibility over the hood was excellent for cultivating row crops. Oliver's dealer network was smaller than the major players, but Oliver dealers were known for deep product knowledge and genuine part support. Farmers who chose Oliver tractors tended to stay loyal, and Oliver 88s that were bought new in the late 1940s frequently remained primary farm tractors into the late 1960s and early 90s. Number 9. Massey Ferguson 135. When Massey Harris merged with Ferguson in 1953 to form Massey Ferguson, the engineering heritage of both companies combined to produce what would eventually become one of the most widely sold tractor lines in the world. The Massey Ferguson 135, introduced in 1964, was the centerpiece of that success. The MF135 used a Perkins AD 3.152 three-cylinder diesel engine producing 45 horsepower. The Perkins diesel was known for exceptional reliability and fuel efficiency, and it powered a compact, maneuverable tractor that was equally at home in small fields, orchards, and large operations. The three-point hitch used Ferguson's draft control system, now refined through 2 decades of production experience, giving operators precise and responsive implement control. Massey Ferguson sold the 135 in virtually every agricultural market in the world. In the United Kingdom alone, it became the best-selling tractor of the 90s. In developing nations across Africa, Asia, and South America, the MF135's combination of capability and repairability made it the machine of choice for agricultural development programs. Its simplicity meant that parts could be machined locally in markets where supply chains were unreliable, extending the machine's working life well beyond what would have been possible with a more complex design. There are MF135 tractors that have been in continuous agricultural service for over 50 years. Some of those machines have never had a major engine overhaul. That is not luck. That is what happens when an engine is designed conservatively, operated within its rated capacity, and maintained consistently. Number 10. Deutz-Fahr D06 Series, Air-Cooled Legacy. Every other tractor on this list uses a water-cooled engine. Deutz built its agricultural empire on a fundamentally different principle, air cooling. And in certain environments and applications, that decision produced the most durable farm tractors ever manufactured. Deutz's air-cooled diesel engines used across their D-Series tractor lineup from the 1950s through the 1980s and into the 1990s, eliminated the radiator, water pump, thermostat, coolant hoses, and associated plumbing that were among the most common failure points on competitors' machines. Remove those components from the equation, and you remove a significant percentage of the maintenance requirements and failure modes that take a tractor out of service. In arid climates, the deserts of North Africa, the dry plains of Argentina, the semi-arid regions of Australia and the Middle East, Deutz's air-cooled tractors operated in conditions that would have been genuinely problematic for water-cooled competitors. There was no coolant to boil away in extreme heat, no risk of a cracked block from freezing, no radiator clogged by dust and chaff. The engine simply worked in conditions where other machines failed. Deutz produced air-cooled tractors across multiple model series over several decades, and the installed base of these machines globally is enormous. In West Africa and the Sahel region, Deutz tractors from the 1970s and 1980s are still primary agricultural machines, maintained by local mechanics who have developed expertise in these engines over generations. That is not planned obsolescence. That is engineering that outlived the civilization that created the conditions requiring it. These tractors didn't just work harder than 3 generations of farmers. They worked with 3 generations of farmers. And in agriculture, that is the highest compliment any machine can receive. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.